We are the daughters of the feminists who said, you can be anything. And we heard you have to be everything. Well, on today's RT Sidebar, we have Stephanie Johnson, who quite literally embodies everything and takes on the world. She's affectionately known as the fixer amongst colleagues and friends, and she's with us today to discuss women in leadership. This is RT Sidebar. Stay tuned. Awesome. Hello. Welcome everybody to the live recording of RT Sidebar. I'm Anna Hayes. I'm going to be the main moderator today with the wonderful Stephanie Johnson. Stephanie came to us from Adrienne Cunningham. She nominated Stephanie, and we are very grateful for that fact. And we got talking to Stephanie and we learned of the fixer. And so Stephanie, please introduce yourself. And I'm sorry, she's the director of respiratory care services in Georgia. A bit of a reluctant leader, such an interesting story of how you got into leadership. So why are you called the fixer? And please give a little background of how you came from New Jersey to Georgia.
Absolutely. First of all, I want to say thank you guys for having me. This is an opportunity of a lifetime for me, being a new podcaster myself. So I'm originally from New Jersey. I moved to Georgia in 2008, and Georgia's been home ever since then. But the fixer has been with me since I was a little kid, to be honest with you. My great grandmother called me that when I was a little kid. Outside of some cousins that were adopted in or into marriage, I am the one that is the lightest hue of this color. And she used to tell me, she was born in 1900. You're going to be the fix. You're going to be the difference. You're going to be the change. And I didn't know what that meant at the time. I'm sorry. Is this instant bothering you guys? It's kind of giving me a good vibe. And so I didn't know what that meant. And so I just learned over time that I have the innate ability to just jump into situations if I see something that needs to be done. Sometimes that comes with a heavy cost and a heavy penalty as well. But it also is something that I can't shake from. So I've had to accept the calling of being the fixer in my family and my friends, at work. My previous organization that I worked for, when I left, I remember one of the employees saying, you know what, you're the fixer. You've been a fixer of everything. You fixed us. Now it's time to go fix somewhere else. So it's a heavy lifting, but I've accepted that calling a long time ago. I will say firmly, probably recently, reluctantly, just because it's a lot of work to do.
That's definitely a burden that your family put on you of you're going to fix everything for everyone.
Well, I won't say they put it on me. It's just it's just how it comes. It's how my mind thinks. It's how I move. It's how I'm always proactive. I get that from my dad, especially even when I go to driving, it's always looking 2 cars ahead or looking to the side and to the left and to the right. That's just how I walk and move in every way I do in life, whether it's going to the supermarket, whether it's going to, I don't know, anywhere. It's just how I move.
You once said to me, when you see the dishes in the sink, clean them. How did you come around that phrase, and what does that mean to you?
My parents, my mom, who's on here, my dad, they were very much sticklers of being accountable, even younger. If you saw something that needs to be cleaned, clean it. You don't need for me to tell you to do it. If you see dishes in the sink, if you see the garbage need to go out, if you need to see the carpet needs to be vacuumed, do it. Nobody needs to tell you to do it. You see it and walk past. You live here too. And this is where you live, and that's where it always stuck with me, even to the point where to this day, if you go out of town, you don't leave the house dirty. And I, till this day, feel like if I leave a dish in the sink or clothes unfolded, if I go out of town, I'm gonna get in trouble, even at 42. So I still do it to this day because that's just how my parents raised me, and I'm grateful for those lessons because it's definitely made me who I am today.
And as a provider, when you see pain, you try and fix it, you try and diagnose it, it's that same activation. So I can see how those values that your parents taught you has influenced you. How did you get into respiratory care?
Honestly, I had no clue what I was getting into. I long time ago, I had aspirations of being a pediatrician. And it took me seeing someone getting a needle, and I said, that's it, I'm done. I'm not doing it no more. But ultimately, when I got out of high school, I was still a little shell shocked because I went to a private school from pre-kindergarten all the way up to the 8th grade. And you're talking about uniforms, you're talking about um, public discipline and all of those things. And so I went from a private to a public high school, and it literally took me to my junior year to come out of my shell, and it was frightening. So all of the things some people had as far as guidance counselors, and this is what stopped me out there. I didn't necessarily have in a sense of me being understanding what I wanted to do outside of being a pediatrician. And so when I got out of school, I was afraid of just what I should do. And I ended up going to the County College of Morrison, New Jersey, and I went there to see what I could possibly learn about. And again, it was either PT or biology, and it just didn't stick to me. And I saw respiratory therapy, and I went to an enrollment session, have asked some questions, and I applied, got in, and 2 years later, I graduated, and it stuck. So honestly, and one of the also things too, my niece, who will be 26 this year, was born premature, 30 weeks, 2 pounds, 14 ounces. And she was my very first view of what respiratory is as far as patients and premature babies. So seeing her going through all the things in the NICU, and coming home and being told she's not going to be able to walk, cry, talk, see, think, and all the things, and she does everything times 10. That was actually my entry to that. And that's kind of what made me stick to it more so, because I had a personal why or personal connection to it. So that's where I come from with that.
How that's so interesting that you said like when you were in high school, you were navigating the world alone and it's interesting to me like that you're about to launch a podcast
Mhm.
yourself and how you must have found your voice and found that confidence. How how did you?
Honestly, life. That's probably the best answer. I being the fixer, you see you see things and go through things that you may not necessarily you don't have a book to tell you how to get through certain things. So again, I credit a lot of my growth and where I am and exposure to my parents, because, we lived in the city for so long, and then when my dad decided he's taking his family out of the city from a safety perspective, I saw different avenues. It was where we lived in a more populated of African Americans. We were the minority at this point. And so, again, my upbringing is a lot of how I am who I am. But as far as me being the voice I have today, if I told you I was shy in high school, some people will believe me, some people won't. But it wasn't up until literally junior year in high school where I found this person to be boisterous. And so some things I am still pretty shy. And for that, I kind of credit a teacher who's no longer with us, Dr. William Farley Smith. He was one of our musical instructors, and I'll never forget the day he pulled me in front of the piano and made me sing a song in front of the whole chorus. And I was nervous, knees knocking, hands sweaty. And when I opened my mouth and I sang, the whole room got silent because no one knew I had that voice. Been a singer since I was 5 years old in church, and 8 years old in my grandmother's choir. So I think even those steps, people understanding that I'm not just shy person sitting in the corner, that I do have a voice, whether it's singing, whether it's talking, and even speaking to you right now, it's been challenging just because public speaking is not the best, or it's not the most fun thing to do, but I have learned to embrace it because I have so much to share. I have so many stories that I have learned even in the last 3 months that I can tailor make it to make it and help somebody in a situation. So a lot of what I do now as far as my voice, it has nothing to do with me. It's me sharing my experiences, my voices, that the things that I've learned, and that I want to be the person that I knew I needed in those moments where I was shy and timid, and I had no sense of style coming from grade school wearing a uniform to wear my own clothes. I thought that was just weird. But just having those experiences and being able to see both sides of the fence, so to speak. And I'm always trying to find a silver lining in everything, whether how hard it is, how difficult it is. Always remind myself and other people that there is someone else that would trade places with you at the drop of a dime, no matter how difficult it may seem for you. I mean, how difficult it may got here. There's always a silver lining somewhere else. So that's part of it. All of these things that I do when I'm going to do and involved in doing has nothing to do with me.
I think all these things help shape you to be a better provider who leads so empathetically,
Absolutely.
but also like mentoring your own staff. Let's tell some of those stories then. So, how did you get into a leadership position? You're now the director of respiratory
Yeah.
services. Yeah.
So that's a loaded question, to be honest with you. So I'll condense it just to say previous location I worked with, I was second place I worked when I moved from New Jersey to Georgia. And I kind of, again, just jumped in to see certain things. And sometimes that's a good thing, sometimes that's a not good thing. Because when you do that and they can see you can maneuver multiple tasks and do it well, it's kind of like, oh, okay, this is yours. And I'm telling you to do this kind of situation. I became like, a preceptor, a charge, worked in the NICU, worked all over the place. And at the time, the director at the time, she just didn't work out well, and she wasn't a good fit for the organization. And when she left, it left the hole. And her direct manager came to me. I got honest truth. I was still bedside. I was still in the NICU doing charge. And her direct manager came to me and said, hey, she's going to be out for some time. Could you mind you just do the schedule for me and order the equipment? And I know you know how to do those things. And I told her, I said, I already did that because I knew you were coming to me to ask me to do that. And the look on her face was like, how did you know that? And I said, because that's what I do. I saw it already. I saw you coming, and I knew her not being here meant that the business that had to keep going. Patients didn't need to suffer because the leader wasn't here. Somebody had to do it, and regardless if I was the it person, I just didn't want my team or the patients suffering for anything or to lack anything. So we need to order this, let's get it ordered. We need to do the schedule, let's get it done. And some things is just about being proactive and is being organized to the fact that you can just see it coming. Again, being proactive and looking down the road 2 cars ahead and getting ahead of it. So
Did you ever have team members frustrated with you because you weren't staying in your lane at all? Like you have one side that they're like, yeah, take my job, like go ahead, do more work. And then you have the other side that says like, hey, wait a second, this is my,
yeah.
you don't like how I'm doing it, but that doesn't mean you should do it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, honestly, I would say from a leadership perspective, because the organization was a little different than what some people were used to coming in. It was, I'm the leader, you're not. I know all things, and it's kind of like, okay, I get it. I respect your lane. I respect all that, but I want you to know before you came here, this is not how this works. I'm trying to help you to be successful, but just listen to me. And then when that doesn't happen, it's like, okay, hands off. I'm gonna stay in my lane, but I'm gonna still help my patients and my team because this is not productive, right? This is not a productive conversation. So, but for the most part, no, no one fusses with me because they're like, oh, she's got it. You can have it all, girl. Do it yourself, and okay.
And so
But
you keep having more and more and
but
more.
the downfall is to that it's like, oh, well, she's doing such a great job of it. We don't need to change it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. But it's kind of like, yeah, I think we need to share this love sometimes. So but no, I don't really get much of a, like pushback or anything from anybody.
I think it's interesting, like healthcare, everyone should be at least united around the patient and patient
Mhm,
care. And so when
mm,
you have that like common mission, then how you achieve that, there's a lot of interpretation. But again, keeping patient first
right.
makes every decision a little bit easier. Um, why do you think it's important for us to be talking about women in leadership today?
Because it's a topic that we don't give enough light to, especially me being an African American woman in leadership. There are so many dynamics to it. And if I can be completely honest and transparent, when I got into leadership, I was blinded a little bit. And I won't say necessarily it was total. being naive. I think it was at the time, my mentors at the time, they were not African American. So it gave me a diluted version of what my struggles and my challenges would be as an African American woman in leadership, and how that shifted to how I grew into my role, whether it be at this organization or that organization, and how my mentors have changed, how my village has changed from my support. I can tell you now, I have three of the best mentors right now. They push me like you wouldn't believe. Dr. Chad Key, Dr. Kwasi Dow, and Dr. Jasmine Miller. Those three I keep at the hip all the time, because I know that they're going to push me out of my comfort zone, but they also fluff the blow as well. Sometimes when I don't get it right, or I don't know the answers, and it's just people to come as a resource. They are the reasons why um, I'm pursuing going back to school for my doctoral degree in healthcare administration, because, it was an aha moment where, we go out to dinner frequently when everybody's in town, and it's, hey, Dr. Key, hey, Dr. Miller, hi, Dr. Dow, and it's, hey, Stephanie. That weight disturbed me a little bit, and it frightened me, because I swore up and down I was going back to nobody's school when I finished my master's degree. You couldn't tell me that I was going to apply. You couldn't tell me that I cared. But once you get around that circle and they teach you and show you that you're able to do it and you're not going to do it alone, it does something differently to you. It hits different. It speaks different. It feels different. Um, and I don't feel alone because I have those three in my corner. And I really feel like the difference is the difference is that I can speak to them in my language because of my challenges I've had as an African American woman in leadership, as opposed to, not to say that my mentors that I had before that are Caucasian, they did a great job. Callie Andrews and Stuart Dowd has definitely put a lot into me. They supported me. They've given me roles that, again, I didn't think that I was even capable of doing. Just that shy girl. I'm just in my lane. But having leaders and mentors that actually can push you and have the same challenges, be it female or male, has been a game changer for me. And so they're stuck with me. And
I
then
want to
especially till I get through my degree, which I'm anticipating to start this fall or the spring in January. So
And also, all your mentors, they're not called the fixer. So they can all call themselves doctor, but you're the fixer. And that's pretty cool. I want to dive into mentorship, but before we do that, let's talk about those challenges that you specifically face. And I think it's important to try, if you have stories at all, I think the younger version of you, let's say
mm,
a high school version of you, is listening to this podcast. Like, what are the things that you wish that she knew, that she said, that she could have addressed in the moment, that she should have expected? Like, let's dive into those challenges a little bit so that our listeners might have those tools. That's a tough question. That's
that's a
that's
heavy
actually,
one.
yeah.
Okay. If I had to go back and talk to Steph teenagery, um, you're not it, you won't be the first and or the last to experience what you experience, right? Um, for so long, and even in high school, I've had this feeling, I won't say being less than, because my experience weren't the same as a lot of my peers. They went from public to public school, private to public school. It's a whole different game changer. And I can remember the night before school started, I cried to my dad, like, I can't go to high school. I don't want to go to high school. I can't do it. And he's like, what do you mean you can't do it? It's like, I don't know what to wear. I don't know what clothes to put on. I can't do it. Dad. Don't make me go. And he's like, listen, you have to go, but you got to trust yourself and know that you're going to be okay. You're going to do fine. I did not know how to express my fear because it was shell shocking to me. Um, so if I had to talk to Seth, then it's, you are not the first and you won't be the last. to experience what you're dealing with. Um, and just know that somebody's experience will be different and better because you've experienced it. And I feel like that's where I am right now, as far as all of my life experiences, be it health, be it marital, be it friendships, be it work, be it just any kind of personal experiences. I feel like that's where I am right now. And I've finally found my purpose in what I'm supposed to do in life. And that really is to be that person that I needed for somebody else when I didn't know how to say, I need that person. So again, a lot me going back to for my degree is a lot for the young little girls that are coming behind me to say, I don't see a African American leader with locks that's 6 feet tall, that's not a size two. I don't see that girl. And I don't see anybody speaking up for us or pushing the envelope to say, you can express yourself, you can disagree, even with a CEO or a COO or a CNO. It's how you say what you say. But giving that empowerment to someone that I needed in those moments is definitely God ordained purpose for me. I know that to be emphatically the truth in and out today. And the moment I accepted that is the moment it started to flow out of me. So I have people that I coach, some girlfriends I coach, just talking through certain situations. Um, and to see them get better and do better, it's kind of like, okay, that's why you're playing yourself. Like you wasting time, you tripping, you got to get this stuff done. But to be honest with you, sometimes those things get so heavy, you don't know how to. You have to process everything that you give somebody else to be better for yourself. So if I don't process, if I don't take time to process those things, I can't be good to anybody. It's hard. It really is hard. And when you speak about generational curses being broken, there are things that I'm adamant about that we didn't do a good job at growing up and teaching kids and how to do things and how to voice their opinions and how to voice concerns, maybe issues that we just decide we don't want to talk about, but it is affecting everything else that comes after us. I am taking a stance to say that I don't want to be that person. I want to be the game changer. Um, and so that stuff is evolving into be the person to say, listen, we either going to have the conversation or we're not. And if we don't have the conversations now, then you're going to have them later because the history repeats itself. The cycle always repeats itself if you do not handle it. So speaking to stuff, then again, it's drown out the outside noise, but ultimately is you won't be the first and you won't be the last.
There is so much to dive in there, but it brings me like joy to also have this podcast because like you're the voice that we want to highlight is someone who's an unbelievable provider, but like how much you've grown from
Oh God, yes.
that version of stuff that we're talking about and then who you are today, like using that voice and coaching and mentoring. And I think a lot about like my best friend who's often called the fixer in her family and everyone calls her when they need help or advice, and she often talks to me like how she wishes she didn't have to be that role, like how
Mm.
it's really like she wishes she could be passive like everybody else and have things given to her, and she's had to fight for everything, and that's why she has these skills, that's why everybody keeps calling her. And so there's this like burdening and this energy like suck really from her.
Absolutely.
And she loves everybody that always calls her, right? And so it's such a paradox, and I feel for you.
Mhm.
um could we dive into a little bit more of those challenges that you face and how you're coaching some of those girls that you mentioned and some of your staff? uh could you talk about perhaps code switching and what that is and how you experience that? Like you mentioned your hair and the identity within your hair. Could we
Yeah.
dive into that a little bit?
Whew. So,
Sorry.
oh, so I was a part of a podcast also with one of my, like I said, my mentors, Chad, Dr. Chad Key, probably a year or two ago, and the topic was code switching. And what came out of that is that we code switch without even realizing that we do. And to give everyone an example about a code switch is, you know, I like to think that I am myself through and through, right? This person of Stephanie you'll see at the supermarket, you'll see um, at church, you'll see at work, you'll see I'm very jovial all the time. However, sometimes being jovial is not necessarily appropriate in the work setting of certain conversations with with restriction, right? So code switching and in meetings is difficult sometimes because I can't be my 100% authentic self all the time, meaning playful, happy, got to be very stern in some conversations. And some people are never on that platform to even know what a code switch is. They're very rigid and very strict kind of movement. And to me, that's boring. That's a very boring existence because we have this whole world around us. And even though we're in a very serious conversation, there should be some light in it too. So for me, I do my very best to try to be that person almost all the time, pull it back a little bit, but at the same time, you're never going to see me be anything but what you see right now. Um, Life is hard, life is too short, life is too difficult to be that stuck in a place where you can't be yourself. Even at a boardroom meeting, even in a corporate office, it's just too difficult to do that. Um, but sometimes you have to know how to play the game. And so I'm not as great at that all the time because I feel like I am who I am. And if I have to code switch all the time for certain things, especially conversations, then maybe I don't need to be in those seats. Because for me, it's more important for me to be myself and allow other people to see you can still be a person and not have to live by these rigid rules to say, um, I gotta be this person to fit in. I don't want to fit in anywhere. I want to be myself, but I want to give my work to something and show my work for it. My work, my dedication, my authenticity, my accountability, my ethnic work should all fit and speak for me and not have to play this role in this box where I am very uncomfortable. But I also understand that once I get uncomfortable on certain things, it's time for me to move. It's time for me to stretch. It's time for me to navigate something different because I'm never the person that's just going to be complacent. I'm never the person that's just going to be okay with being mediocre. That's actually one of the things I teach to my team. I coach them and I say to them, if you didn't give your team, your patients the very best today, as if it was you in that bed, we failed. I need you to go back outside that door, come back in and find it because what I will not allow in my space or aura is mediocrity or complacency or just being okay. And that's one of the things I love about my circle of mentors now because they push the mess out of me, the things that I never thought I would even have conversations about. And so it's to the point now I see some of my team members and I have to take a step back and I go, man, you sound like a little Stephanie because that's something I would have said or I would have done. And just holding people accountable to that. Because if you were that patient in that bed, you will want somebody to speak up for you. You will want somebody to do the things that is not just okay to be okay, not just getting by and skirting by. That is never okay for me. And the moment I see somebody on my team, they get pulled to the side. Like this is not, it's not okay. That's not your representation of me. And if I don't do that, you got to go fix it immediately. And if you got to go home, we can make that happen too. Because I won't tolerate anything but the best for our team and especially our patients. At the end of the day, nothing.
I have like an example of how I can kind of relate to this. I was an artillery officer in the army for when I got out of college.
Mhm.
So I was like an active soldier, and artillery is combat arms. So it was like all men. Like I was the only female in an environment overseas,
Mhm.
and I would be hyper masculine in that environment, which is like hilarious to think today that I was that. I would wear like massive, well, my combat lenses were massive because they didn't have stuff for women. So it was too large for my
Too
face.
big.
But it would like shade my eyes. I would literally walk like my arms were like out a little bit more, like invisible lat syndrome. And I I got really, really fast because fast I could publicly be in front of the pack. Nobody cared how
Hmm.
many push-ups I could do, but if I could
Hmm.
physically, like visually be in front of everyone, then it bought me time to like learn my job. And I would honestly be drained, like energy wise, from
Absolutely.
faking it. And like this is like in that one circumstance, so totally different. But that's the example of code switching, where how could I show up as my true self? And of course, like my soldiers saw through that. Like they knew yeah,
Absolutely.
like they knew I
Who
love
is this
Taylor
person?
Swift. I'm hyper feminine. Like but they like could respect me. Like it was this weird, like earning their respect. And what was so interesting to me and what like made me think about this as you were talking about, like, I don't have room for you in my space if you're going to act like that, or my aura. And I try to carve out in my office, it was a space for my soldiers to show up more sensitive, more feminine, to have a place of compassion. And that was my office. And the
Yes.
a place for them to go. And I actually thought in that moment, that's why I believe in God too. Like I thought that was actually why I was in this situation, because I didn't want to be artillery necessarily. And like I don't know. And I think about how we talked about like the energy that is probably drained from you, uh,
Mhm.
and your space. How do you help younger artists who might be experiencing this same code switching? And how do you create a space of either compassion? And then, sorry, last like question with this is the awareness skills that you have to say,
Mm.
when you were afraid, you reached out to your dad, and when you're experiencing code switching and you said, oh, like this environment doesn't accept me as my full authentic self. Like that's a ton of awareness skills. How are you encouraging that in your staff or the folks you coach?
Just in that what you just said, just being aware that they may not look the same. Like you get to know your team better than they give you credit for, right? And some of them um will get quiet when they're uncomfortable to have a conversation, or it's, oh, I don't want to get anybody in trouble. That's the worst phrase you could ever say to me. I promise you. Because we can't change if we don't know how to fix something. If someone is doing something incorrectly, we have to fix address the offender. But a lot of times it's really just setting one-on-one time. We have an expectation with the organization I'm with to do one-on-one um, rounding or just touch bases. But I kind of up the ante a little bit, and I pushed them to do outside connections, things of that nature. And so it takes them out of the space of work conversation and actually just be themselves. And I get to ask questions, and I'll tell them I don't have a badge on. It's this stuff. We still respect each other, but I don't have a badge on right now when you can't be yourself. At work, you can still be yourself, but there's certain limitations, and they know that. Um, but at the same time, reminding them that they are a person before they are a therapist. They have a family before they have to worry about a patient or doing a ventilator check. They have themselves that they have to take care of before they come to work. Um, and knowing how to give grace when they are not in the best positions to um, deal with the heaviness of taking care of certain patients. Sometimes it's okay. If you have to come to my office, I will leave my office so you can have a space by yourself, whatever that looks like. Myself and God, I would be again remiss if I didn't mention the manager that works with me is a Dorsey. Listen, everybody needs their everybody needs themselves as a Dorsey, because I can tell you Z and I work so well in tandem. We can finish each other's sentences, and I can close my eyes and go to sleep and know that everything is going to be fine if I have to leave work today. We hold each other up, but I say that because he is so protective of everybody in that department, and he knows when it's work related and he knows when it's personal, and he will pull you to the side and he will say, what is it? What can I help you with? What do we need to help with you? Because you're not in this by yourself. Even though I am your manager, I still need to know that you're okay, because eventually it will trickle down to the team. It'll trickle down to your patients. And one thing we don't want to do is have to counsel somebody and coach somebody for something that we could have helped mitigate. So just being transparent, honestly, and letting them know that if there's a conversation that needs to happen that you just don't feel comfortable talking to him about, you can come to me about. And if you don't feel comfortable talking to me, go him for it. But giving them the freedom of being humans before they are workers has been a game changer because they come to us quite frequently. My office is full, which is people just coming and just like breaking bread. I'll have to say sometimes I got to get some work done, guys. Could you go to your break room? But it means a lot to me because they feel comfortable and it doesn't feel like the principal office for them to come and say, hey, I want to just, I need someone to talk to. So a lot of times I'll give them that space. You can go for a walk. Let's go for a walk together. Do you want to sit? Do you want me to pray for you right now? I can do that for you too. No, you want me to
Mhm.
text you, say how you're doing, whatever that is. Is there somebody specific? So we always try to meet them at the personal level because if that person is not okay, the worker is not going to show up at all, mentally, emotionally, uh, just connecting at all. They're not going to show up. And so that's how we get to them to just like, hey, we're a family. We're here for hours. Um, and we celebrate each other all the time too. So that's very important. They know that coming in the door. And even if I have agency therapists or float pool therapists, when you're on my team, you're on my team. I don't segregate to say, oh, that's just an agency person. No, you're on my team because I need you to function as my team so my patients have the same experience. So your expectations and accountability are on the same level. So yes, you're on my team.
I love that you're so approachable and that you have someone who's a great partner, Z. Like that's awesome because like you totally need
We
someone in
are
your
a
corner.
package deal. Let me tell you something, okay? Package deal.
That's
There's no unwrapping either one of us. And if it is, I'm holding on to your ankle. It's package deal.
that's
Cannot.
the best like working relationship when you can like look at someone and you don't have to actually say anything out loud and you both know exactly what you're thinking. And usually it's in panic when I need to do that. So
It is
I
actually kind of scary sometimes
spooky.
because
Yeah.
I'll say I want to do X and he was like, I just already did that. And like, how did you know that? It's like, 'cause that's just who I am. And so to say I can trust him is a complete understatement. I'm very blessed and fortunate to have him on my team. Very
This
much so.
will relate. Um, I want to dive into microaggressions a little bit
Mhm.
because the colleague that I had that I could make eye contact with, we would just look at each other and then we would like know we had each other's back and then we would address the situation. But
Mhm.
the difficulty for me in the military, and again, that's towards sexism, but I'm sure like you can't talk about microaggressions without addressing racism right now too.
Right.
It was hard to recognize the aggression then and there to actually do something. And it was usually after work where I'm like on a run or driving home that I'd be like, oh, that was awful. And wait a second, I think like how and now what? Now what do I do now that I've actually recognized this? And so I'm wondering like, and I don't have the answer for this at
Mhm.
all, but like what tips to address it in the workplace? How can a professional do that if you're the leadership, right? The opposite scenario. And um yeah, how can we be more aware of microaggressions?
I think uh, that's a darn if you do, darn if you don't kind of situation, honestly. I can tell you that I've been called racist in even my present position. I've been called racist in the previous position. And sometimes what I find and I feel is that it's anger from accountability. So all they have is to hit me where it might hurt. So you're going to call me a racist because I wrote you up because you were bad mouth and you did something inappropriate. Okay, I guess I have to be racist because at the end of the day, that's what's right and what's wrong. And then I've had experiences where I've had team members feel like that they can't talk to me because I'm unapproachable or I'm too strong of a female to have conversations with. So it's easier for the male counterparts to talk to Z for certain situations. And in those moments, Z is extremely um, just capable of knowing how to step in without me even knowing. Right. So there's a level of protection that I don't even have to experience with him for anybody that his ear catches any and everything that sounds a little funky, that sounds a little, yeah, this not gonna go well conversation. And um, I just had to take those things in grace because at the end of the day, I can't change who I am. I can't change the color of my skin. I can't change that my hair grows this way. I can't change that. I can't change that my parents allowed me to be over 6 feet. I can't change that. So all I can do is be me, be the humble me, the charismatic me, the approachable me. I mean, honestly, if you took a poll of people that I worked with over the last 10 years in Georgia, I guarantee you would not have not one negative comment from anybody, whether it's someone that I was a leader of, or I was a peer of, or I was a peer and became a leader of. There's just a level of respect you got to have for yourself and not stoop to someone's level when you know that you're not that person. It's going to happen regardless. It really is. I've had that happen before at an organization where a patient's family member didn't want me to deliver their baby because I was Black. And I asked the question, so if I was the only person in this building to deliver your child, what would happen? And the answer essentially was, then my child would like have to suffer because can't touch my child because you're Black. It's very difficult to navigate those things because if you're not careful, it could consume you, and it could change you, and it could make you be a person that you know you're not, and make you be somebody that you're not capable of communicating. So I think one thing for me as a profession, I've been able to keep myself grounded in the sense of I have a job and a duty to do with my team, and I can't let other people's opinions of me, even being microaggressive, change me, because I know that's not who I am. Six on one end, half dozen the other. I could think I'm more of a 18 rather than half dozen, because my experiences have shown me that you can go back 10 years seriously, and there'll be positive moments that people remember outside of anything else. So you got to take some of those things with a grain of salt. It took me a while to get there. I can tell you the first time someone closely remotely called me anything other than a child of God, it broke me. It really did. I actually remember calling my mom crying, like, could you believe this woman thought I'm racist? And how could she say that? I'm da, 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 da. And that was so long ago. It didn't even matter anymore.
In the beginning of the show, you said to younger Stephanie, you're not the first,
You're
you
not
won't be
the
the
first and you
last,
won't be the last.
and you're not
Absolutely.
alone.
That too.
I'm like the only thing we can do is keep telling these stories and keep having a space to
Well,
talk
this is
about
why I'm
this.
pushing the envelope and being where I am, because again, being on a podcast, so just being vocal, virtually, this is definitely um different times, right? So we got to move with times. So it's I think it would be very important to take advantage of these opportunities to reach somebody that I probably would not have had the chance to reach 10 years ago, right? Who knows who's going to see this and catch and hear something that we've said. Again, this is not about me. This is more so about reaching somebody somewhere that will know that they're not alone. It's not your first, not your last situation. And that there's just certain things you're going to have to navigate in life, period, whether you like it or love it. And the difference means how you address it, how you hold on to it. I don't hold grudges. I don't have a bone in my body. I will go to sleep tonight and let it go and wake up. It's a new day. Um,
To a listener who's going to listen to this recording and they're experiencing racism or sexism, like, hear that. Okay, you're not alone. And you can, and in those scenarios, look for advocates, like look for the Z,
right.
look for the Stephanie, add Stephanie on social. I'm sure she'll come in,
Absolutely.
she'll advocate for you, she'll champion you, and she'll squash anything in the butt. She's a fixer. She's going to fix everything. Uh,
I
yeah.
won't say everything, but I'm trying.
No, I'm so sorry. I'm not putting that on your
No, no,
shoulders.
no. I'm
Gosh.
messing with you. I told you I was this jovial person. Don't take me too serious. It's okay.
No, but that's that quote that I love. It's women were told that you could be anything, and all we heard is you have to be everything. So no,
That
taking
is
that off
true.
your shoulders, giving some grace here.
That is
But
true.
yeah, any listener, look for an advocate, whether that's in human resources or look for that Z. And if not, be that advocate, be that example, be the Stephanie, right? Which is honestly incredible. I'm so happy we're talking about this.
Thank you.
And I just want to dive in a little bit deeper there too. the patient who said, "Don't deliver the baby because you're Black,"
Ooh,
how do you respond to that? Like,
I walk out. I mean, if I could take myself back to that moment, it was literally going to a delivery, and it was a high risk delivery. And so the nurse comes to me and says, there was two therapists at the time, who's going to room, I don't know, 5. And I said, I am. She said, well, I think you shouldn't. And I go, why? And she says, well, the mom and the dad are very racist, even to their own. And I would, this is where Newark, New Jersey came out just a little bit, what I'm about to say. I, I would hate to know what he would do to you if you walked in a room. I said, no, don't think about what he'll do, because I promise you, there's nothing he will do that I won't retaliate with, because I don't tolerate people putting their hands on me or anyone else. If it got to that point, I will just not go into the room. But I fear for that baby because, again, I asked the question, if I was the only somebody in this building or all of the hospital staff, what would happen to that child? And essentially, they would sacrifice their child life because I'm Black. And it got deeper for me because you know what I said? I said, I am so sad for that child because they're going into a family that is racist. And that child is only going to know and learn those exact ways. And in 10, 15 years from now, they're going to be repeating the same cycle. Not to say that that child couldn't have pivoted that by themselves, but it is exceptionally harder when you think about, I'm trying to navigate this non-racist mindset that I was cultivated from birth, from creation, before I was born. So I stepped back and I said, this will always be a part of our thing. This will always be a part of our society because we're cultivating yet another generation that hasn't even been born yet to be racist. That stuck harder for me than them not wanting me to touch the child. Because again, nothing that I do is for me, it's for the other generation. So now we have a thicker layer to penetrate with people that are coming up behind me to know that this is normal, but it shouldn't be. So I wept for that baby because they're going to go through things that they'll see normal, and it will take a lot to break that for them. And God only knows what would have happened, what would happen once that child got to be of adult age, and what they ever done with that mindset. I don't know. But that was the harder part for me, just to know that there's a baby being born into this culture. And yet again, the cycle repeats itself. Again, at that point, it wasn't about me because, okay, you don't want me to go to delivery? I will gladly not go. Because at the end of the day, if I went and something happened, then I was the target to blame for anything. I was the target to blame, even if I was at the door. Thank you. Thank you for telling me that and giving me the option to make my decision. But at the end of the day, I went home and I said that baby is going to be set up for a whole lot of heartache or not. Because at the end of the day, that's all they knew coming into the world. Like, haven't even been born yet. And you have your mom and and your dad. I just chuckle at that, thing that is just incredible. But that is why I am who I am and where I am, because sometimes it takes a really strong shoulder and back to push against what is okay, and speak up for it.
so
And I'm okay with being that person.
this is so crazy interesting because I did want to dive into your patient population a little bit and how important it is to have a diverse RT staff because it's
Mm,
probably better care for the patient. So like, but I didn't consider that too, right? I'm coming at you live from New York. Like I grew up in New England, and that extreme racism is a little bit rare for me to witness. It's
right.
usually more micro level personally. Um, and so I didn't consider, right. Yeah, you're from the South, like where it is so large. Yeah, how important is diversity in your RT department?
Very important. I think over time we've learned that there are certain things we really don't know about certain cultures, even as far as communicating to one another. Someone that I have on my team is from Nigeria. She has a very strong voice, and most of the time it can come across aggressive. She's being disrespectful, she's being mean, but it's really her trying to get her point across. But everybody can't hear you up here. It's hard to hear you up here. I need you to bring them decibel down a little bit, kind of situation. And then you have some that are the opposite, that are very meek, mild. They don't speak up. They come in and just, hey, how you doing? And this one comes in, good morning, how you doing? And they're like, oh, that's too much. I don't like talking like that. So it takes time to kind of really get to know them again at the personal level. Because if the person doesn't show up, the RT is not there. They're there in body, but they're not there in spirit and emotions to be able to connect with the team.
As
So
you
again, a
just
lot of it is just leading the way, and expecting inspect what I expect and kind of model for myself. And I often tell my team, if you don't hear me talking to you like that, if you don't hear me talking over here, over there, then I shouldn't hear you hear it here either. And that goes from anybody in the organization, whether it's a nurse, a doctor, a nurse therapist. That's one thing I will never tolerate. Absolutely not.
as you're describing their voices, I am just thinking like, oh, we should have them on the podcast because that sounds like great audio content.
Let's make it happen.
How do you maintain this level of energy and enthusiasm and positivity?
My circle. There are days I don't have it to speak. There are days I don't know how to communicate. Um, my girl Erica and Michelle, we have a group chat every day. We text each other, good morning, have a great day, I love you, it's all good. And she's a proponent of get it off your chest, say what you got to say. And most of the times that's been hard for me, but when you do, it's like you're free. If you have a issue or something, get it off of you. That's one thing that she's taught me, and has modeled from. And the one thing I love about my friendships too is even though they're so supportive when we have our little rifts and tacks, it's not difficult to kind of go through it and talk through it and patch it up and move on and it's over. Because the one thing we don't teach enough of is relationships are difficult overall. I think sometimes when we say relationship, we automatically think platonic or romantic relationship. I realizing work relationship, mom and dad relationship, sister, brother, cousin, best friends are all relationships you have to cultivate. And so I take pieces of all those people with me in all those situations, but I ultimately fall back to my corner, my friends and my mentors. Like today ain't the day. I don't feel it today. I'm not positive Patty today. I am grumpy Ginger.
Grumpy Ginger.
I
I'm
just gave somebody a new name, but
but the
it
gingers out
really.
there everywhere are
Sorry,
upset.
Ginger. You're
They'll be
not
like
grumpy.
Alexa.
Sorry, Ginger. I didn't mean anything by that. Um, but at the end of the day, it's really using my circle for that support because you can't be strong all the time. You can't pour out of an empty cup all the time and not be filled up. So we take turns, right? And maybe my day, maybe it's Erica's day, maybe Michelle's day, maybe Dr. Key, Dr. Miller, whomever. Um, we take turns. And one thing I can tell you, I've learned to listen for the silence. I can hear silence. If I don't hear from a certain person for a certain amount of time, I gotta check. You okay? Are you good? So listening for the silence is definitely a skill that you have to learn because some people are, I'm okay you to death in a text message, but what do you look like? And I do that with my team too. If they call out for work, I'll call and say, are you okay? Is the baby okay? Because the baby sick if they had a baby. Or if I knew that their mom was sick, is everything okay with mom? Do you need anything? Do you need anything outside of prayer or thoughts from me? So I do that too. And I can tell you a lot of my team members get thrown off like, wow, I've never had a director text me, much less text me to see if I was okay. Like, well, we're human, right?
I think this
So
circles back to, you're not the first, not the last, you're not alone. I love that. And I love too that you said one-on-one time, that you take everybody out for one-on-one time and that you're prioritizing those platonic relationships, but also those co-working relationships. I kind of
Mhm.
lit up when you said platonic. I'm reading a book called Platonic right now. And this is a quote from that book that
Uh-oh.
I love. I love this
Let me
book.
hear it.
Finding security is finding our core. It's not about transforming, but about us excavating, finding out who we are underneath the graves we dug and the pieces of us we've buried for self protection. It's a grueling journey to security. We'd rather be ruined than to be changed. But if you're lonely or pushing people away, using humor to hide uncomfortable feelings, or trying to be strong all the time, or think about people will reject you or keep hurting you, all these things, you're not enough. It's just, oh, I lost my train. Stagnancy towards its own agony. And this whole book is about prioritizing platonic love and friendships and leaning on those friendships and sustaining them because that's like really difficult too. And a
Yeah.
lot of females and a lot of just any like minority people usually isolate themselves when they're
Yeah.
in situations of conflict. And so I like love that you're literally building community with your various platforms, the podcast, TikTok, your
Mm.
social, like that, and then building community within your department. Like you're doing
Yeah.
all of these things, and that just like lights me up because I think we're trying to do that here on the sidebar too.
Yeah. The one I will say too is my best friend Nicole in Virginia. She and I, we've gone through it. Let me just say that. I mean, if we could, if walls could talk about having arguments with your best friend, we wrote the book, right? And but this time around, we decided to do the hard work, right? Literally giving each other grace and forgiving each other, forgiving ourselves, but actually doing the work to heal individually and together. And she's so important to me that it doesn't matter how many times we argue, we fight, we push each other away. I do not want to live without her, right? Um, God, dog, I don't want to get emotional, but she is definitely my right and left shoulder person. I can feel her when she's not around. I can hear her when she's not around. But the one thing I love about her is she's so non-judgmental. Even when she tells me, don't do that, and I do it, and if that comes back and bite me, she will say, well, sis, it's okay. We're gonna get through it together. She never goes, I told you so. You should listen to me. You know, and that's the energy that I try to keep with myself, even with Erica and Michelle and all of those. Um, I need her in my life. I've told her before, I need you to survive. I need my team. I need the people that actually pour into me because I can't do this by myself. No one should. And if I don't have the people that I can call and say I'm not having a good day, um, I need some support. Well, what good is it? I'm not getting good for anybody else. And she's amazing at like, listen, I need you to take a step back. I feel your anxiety. I need you to go take a rest. Call me later. I'll check on you later. Something like that. But I can't do this without her. Absolutely not. And she's a part of the journey from even before I graduated. We've been friends ooh, since 1994. What's that? 30 years, almost 30 years?
28.
Oh, Lord. So sorry, sis. I didn't mean to tell our business like that, but it's the truth. So her mom is my mom. My mom and dad are her mom and dad. Her dad, when he was here, God bless him, God rest his soul. He called me his other daughter, and there was nothing that you can change that from him. So that is very key with being successful, any kind of leader. I can tell you that for sure. Any angst, pains, or grumbles I have, I reach out to my team, my circle, because that's what I have, and they can communicate, they can relate more than I like to believe, give credit to, but I do. I
I love that you give credit to your team, and I can see like your crafts. And we never talked about this before, like as like people of faith and uh grace. The concept of grace is so cool because
Is so huge.
it's a gift and it's
It is
unmerited. Like it's not for
absolutely.
those who deserve it. Like the the patient who said, "Don't deliver my baby because you're black." Like the ability to give her grace. Like that, I like unbelievable. And like
Mm-hmm.
the ability to give our friends grace when and how they can give you grace. Like I like thinking of
Because you
grace
never
as
know
a
when you're going to
gift.
need it yourself,
Yeah.
right? We would like to think that we're never going to be making these terrible decisions that sometimes we make. And like, what was I thinking? You never know when it's your turn for somebody to go, you know what? She did a terrible thing, but she really didn't mean it. You just don't know. So at the end of the day, I literally, and this is for real, like I literally will step back and say, okay, well, the silver lining is this. The silver lining could be that, there is still somebody that will want to trade places with me today. I may not have it all. I may not have all the answers. I may not be where I wanted to be financially, spiritually, emotionally, physically, whatever that is. That still doesn't trump the fact that I've been given grace and mercy on a plethora of things and decisions that I've made that I wish I could change. You just don't know when it's your turn. You
That
just don't know when it's your turn. And so having that bank, building that up for yourself, it's kind of like you're rewarding yourself for when you do have to reach out to somebody and say, you know what, I'm sorry I hurt your feelings. I know that's not me, but forgive me. I didn't mean it. I was in a place where I couldn't express myself. And this is probably another podcast, but understanding where we are now as a society mentally, it takes even more grace because we are so not downloading the same since the pandemic. You have to communicate your words, use your words wisely even more now. And that's why I think it's so important for me to talk to my team all the time because it's no, I want you to communicate to me. I need to hear what you're saying. And when they're talking to me, I often say, okay, what I hear you telling me, what my ears heard, what I just heard you say, and tell me if I didn't say it right. Tell me if I didn't get it. And they're comfortable saying, no, you're not getting it. Okay, let me sit back and I want you to say it again so I can hear it. Tell me what I'm missing because I want to get it. But we don't take the time to do that a lot. And the pandemic has just jacked us all up, especially from a mental state. So it's really important to tap into those things so though, I'm not perfect. Far from it. I don't want to be perfect. Perfect is boring. But at the end of the day, you need to have people that know how to look beyond your faults, just like God does. Because I don't have it all. I have my forgiveness to give to you. I have all that I can share. If you know who I am, you know that I probably didn't mean to do that thing that may have hurt you. If it takes some time for you to walk back and say, okay, let this dust settle. Let me process these emotions and come back, we talk about it, I'll be there. But just forgive me because sometimes I don't know what we're saying. You don't know what you're saying sometimes because you're going through the motions or you're experiencing things on a different level that you have never had to tap into before. So it changes you. It changes your emotions, changes your moves, how you communicate is very important to know that it could be my day tomorrow. I may do something that I would have never thought about to Nicole or Adrian, my mom, whomever. Forgive me. And we don't have a lot of people that know how to say that and say that gracefully and
it
not be boastful about it. Yeah, I apologize and you ain't take it. No, no.
it's ironic to me because women, I think we dish out forgiveness. I think all the women I know can be forgiving, but they're relentless and judgmental on themselves and they don't give themselves grace.
Ooh, you said something. You
and
said something there.
and they deserve that grace. So like any
Man,
listener
oh
right now,
man.
and they're thinking they're like, I'm not enough, or I want to be everything, or I'm trying to be a perfectionist, and they're beating themselves up. Like all I hear from you, honestly, Stephanie, is you deserve grace. Give out that grace to others, and then like work on that self-awareness because
Mm-hmm.
that I think as we're stumbling right now and how to communicate and what we think about the world, like really like give grace to learning and
Yeah.
I think focusing on awareness skills is the only remedy maybe that we could have
I'm
like
actually working on emotional intelligence with my team right now, and it's been a game changer. It
there's
really
so many
is.
questions I have for you because we should like dive into
We're
like
gonna,
unconscious
we're gonna
bias
have to
training.
schedule another one
I
and another
know,
one and
I
another
know.
one.
We are like at an
Matthew's like,
hour.
yep, let's do it.
We didn't even get into my questions on mentorship versus
No.
advocacy versus championing others, which I had so many.
Well, listen, I'm down for whatever that looks like. Schedule them. We're gonna do
Good.
this.
All right, let's get some takeaways from the men on the call. JB and MP, what did you guys learn today?
AB, you want to go first?
Such a
I'll volunteer you. I have no problem with that.
Sure. First, Stephanie, I finished my doctorate of healthcare administration in December. I agree with you. You feel different when you're done. I remember going through it,
Oh.
and it was very difficult. My chair would tell me if it was easy, everyone would do it. There's less than 1% of the population that has a doctorate, so it does separate you from an education standpoint.
Yep.
But I feel different. Like I felt that difference when I did my bachelor's, when I did my master's, but then when I did my doctorate, I could feel it. So I highly recommend it. Highly, highly, highly recommend it.
So that means I can call
There's
you
another
to be
person
another
on here.
mentor, Jonathan, right?
You absolutely can. You absolutely can.
Not president.
and-
Who said Stephanie for president? You giving me too much credit now. Time to go.
So one of my takeaways though is on mentorship, and it was my first female leader was my mentor at the beginning, and so she said to me, "I will mentor you, but I will only mentor you if you take on a mentee." Right? So you had to pass it along because you had to grow the future while you're growing, because
Yes.
it's, you can't go up and then there's a void behind you. So I take that away from you, and the fact that you learned that on early on is great, and I think that's who made you what you are today, because I kind of found it a little bit late, but you found it early on, and I don't think enough people take that into heart, that you need that mentor, but you
Yeah.
also need to be a mentor. And so the fact that you found your mentors and you mentor people, I mean,
And I
that just
actually
makes you
just signed
the
up to be
strong.
a volunteer mentor for In Sorrow organization in Georgia. I don't know if you're familiar with them. They do a lot of placements for children that age out of foster care. And so I'm actually in the process of filling my application right there too to be a mentor for that as well. So it's in me. I can't run from
That
it anymore.
that's what makes you that true leader. It really does.
Thank you,
So,
Jonathan.
fantastic work.
Thank you.
Jonathan.
Matt,
Wait,
yeah.
Jonathan's on the hot seat. Jonathan, it's great that you had a mentee. Did you advocate at all for your mentee? Did you champion your mentee at all?
Oh yeah, several of them. Several of them. I pushed them all to go to school. Uh, they're actually all my mentees were female leaders, but one got a doctorate in business administration. One got a master's in business and a master's in healthcare. They both moved up, and that was my goal, was to see them to move up. I mean, their success was my success. I would get more choked up seeing them succeed than me succeed.
Yes,
And
that's
yeah,
exactly right.
that was,
And
yeah.
thank you, Jonathan. My point there is to listeners who are like, how can I do better? And how can I help others, is not just telling them, but advocating for them, and to watch them then succeed by that advocation. And ask yourself, are you treating your different mentors differently? Are you building financial confidence in one and maybe a different style of confidence in another, right? Like financial skill and acumen in one. And I don't know, I think more women and people of color need advocates to bring them to the table too. So
Ooh-wee.
if you're sitting there and you're the RT director and you're like, how can I do this? Like, I love Stephanie. Like, how can I champion Stephanie forward? Like, yeah, that's what you should be asking yourself. Okay, Matt, you're next.
So I want to echo with what Jonathan said. Leadership is about passing it forward. And that was probably my first takeaway. Stephanie, you recognize that was hard for you, and you don't want it to be hard for somebody else. You want to be able to share your experiences. So my biggest takeaway today, because I like to get mushy, that's how we work here, is I want to thank our two wonderful leaders today, Anna Hayes and Stephanie Pearson, for sharing their experiences with us, because that makes us better leaders. And then maybe we could pass it along someday to somebody else, a mentee, that little tidbit's going to change their life in a positive way. So that's a big thing. The other big takeaway I got from you, Stephanie, and I think I got to really kind of look introspectively, is being authentic. You made it a priority to be you. And that's not easy. That takes courage. Dr. Key and I were back and forth. That takes courage to be authentic, especially in a place where you're different.
Absolutely.
So to do that, like that was like, oh, you know what? Maybe I have to be a little bit more authentic. Maybe I have to be a little bit more myself, because that's what my company hired. Right. That's what my family wants me to be. They don't want me to be some fake person. They want me to be me. So I took that from you, and it's something I won't forget. This recording, I will remember that Stephanie Pearson had an impact on me and how I'm going to. So thank you for mentoring me today. I appreciate that.
Oh, Matthew, you should have told me you was getting mushy. I ain't got no tissues.
I like to get mushy. That's how I do it.
Now I know from next time I'm getting my whole paper towel roll right here. Just rip it off.
But I really just want to thank you. That was like a little tidbit for me that just made me feel good. And you know what? I'm going to take that away. So thank you.
I received that. Thank you, Matthew. I appreciate that.
Now, what's your big takeaway, Stephanie? Because you mentioned that you were hesitant. This is hard to come on a show. Like, how does it feel? Like, we're a little over time, but yeah, how does it feel?
It's okay.
Amazing. I'm ready to do another one and another one. I'm down. I'm your girl. Like I said, I'm going to start recording my own today to kind of do some legwork, but I have my own coming up soon. It's called This Is the Pace. And we're going to talk about some heavy conversations, some real conversations that are long overdue.
Once your podcast is up, we'll have the link in the show notes so you can follow along to Stephanie and listen to her podcast, which is so exciting. And the power of vulnerability. Like, there's something really healthy about like telling these stories, and even though it's tough,
and not being afraid to start over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. That's huge.
Yeah, reinvention. And all right, our next shows, because we are running tight on time here.
I'm sorry.
No, I don't want to stop. We'll have to have you come back. We got Tara Chadwick, who's going to be on. You can register for her live event recording in the link in the show notes. And she was episode 9 on the patient experience. So we're really excited to have Tara back. And then we have Negotiations with Moshe Cohen, who's the author of Cobbly Wobbles. He's a lecturer at BU and at Harvard University. He's incredible. So please attend his as well. And we're actually looking for someone who's currently facing a negotiation situation at their work, and we can problem solve that live on the air. So that could be salary, promotion, capital investment, like whatever you are facing, we got an expert, and we're really curious to learn more about that. So Matt, do you want to kick us off with some shout outs here?
Absolutely. Like always, we always finish with some shout outs. So once again, thank you, Anna. Thank you, Stephanie, for sharing your time. Miss Beverly, for having Stephanie, your daughter, being here with us. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. So to keep up with the theme, we are recognizing female leaders.
My dad is standing there right too. I will be remiss. I need to say hi to my dad. That is actually my twin. I was born on his birthday, November the 6th, and he just overcame a severe health situation. So my dad is a fighter, and that's where I get my fight from, those two right there. So thank you, Mom and Dad.
I love it. That is the best. So to continue with our shout outs, we're recognizing female leaders. I'm going to start off with one here at our company, Tammy, the Hammer. Soriel, we're so happy to have you. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Steph, you have somebody?
I do. I want to shout out and thank my sis, Adrienne Cunningham.
Yes.
Adrienne has been with me years, and she reminded me one time that I kept telling her that God tells me that I have to use something with my mouth and my voice. I don't remember the conversation, but she tells me every time I talk about the podcast. So the reason why I'm here is her speaking me up to Anna and you guys to say, I think you need to take a look at her and have her on the thing. So sis, thank you so much for believing in me, pushing me again, and being a part of my circle. I would not be on this podcast without you. So I appreciate you, sis. This is for you.
All right. Well, I had one female leader I wanted to give a shout out to, but now I have two. I'll start off with Anna Hayes. All my barflies know that Anna has never hosted an episode. This is her first episode, and she did phenomenal. I mean, you knocked it out of the park.
Yes, you did.
Great. I'm so proud of you right now. And I think you need to have a larger presence on this podcast than you do. So that's my first shout out. My second shout out is to Tara Chadwick, one of my favorite hospital leaders. Your compassion just gets everyone absorbed into what you're saying. You can control any room you're in. It's just so fun to watch. I mean, we both grew in our professions together alongside each other, and to see where you're at now just makes me so proud. Yeah, and I can't wait to have you on the podcast in 2 weeks. Being the super nerd that you are and that I am, it's May 4th, so may the 4th be with you.
May the 4th be with you.
Yeah, and so I'll hand it off to Matt. You got any other shout outs?
I do. I am blessed here at Vapotherm to have a wonderful medical affairs team that has wonderful women leaders that are my friends, people I look up to. So Dr. Jay Whittle, that's your new stage name is Jay Whittle. That's what we're going to do. Jeannie, Amy, and Kathy. As always, it's just my absolute pleasure every day I get to come to work with you guys. So thank you guys for being great leaders and being great friends.
Jonathan, you're a sweetheart. Thank you so much. It's really easy to host when you have Stephanie on the other end. So
stop.
Yeah, huge love, like just so much love. Like this
true.
is the best part of the podcast where we just celebrate each other. It's so fun. But no, we didn't get to talk about diversity within mentors, right? And I grew up with like no female mentors, right? I was in the military. And then I had Major Starlet Baker, who was my first ever female mentor. I could see that I could do it all, and it's totally different styles of leadership. And it was just such a pleasure to witness her lead and then to get all those tools from her and put them in my little tool bag. And now we have like an awesome friendship. And I see that every day with Dr. Whittle too. Like I feel like honored to be, even know her. She's amazing. J-Dog Whittle. We love you too. That's all the time we have for today. So you can join RT Sidebar with the link in the show notes, and you can also celebrate the women leaders in your life, or really any leader, birthdays, promotion, anniversary. We're here to celebrate you guys and to provide voices. You can nominate someone to speak on the next RT Sidebar, just like Stephanie was. That's all in the show notes. Thank you all, and we will see you next time.
Thank you guys.